DKT UPSC CSC। अगर आप केवल सिविल सर्विस परीक्षा के प्रीलिम्स, मेंस और इंटरव्यू के वीडियो देखना चाहते हैं तो सब्सक्राइब करें DKT UPSC CSC चैनल। यहाँ आपको टॉपर्स के वीडियो रैंक के हिसाब से अरेंज मिलेंगे। चैनल के लिंक के लिए डिस्क्रिप्शन बॉक्स में जाएं।
I'm Yash Kale. I've secured rank 22 in the Indian Forest Services exam, and here today we are speaking with Delhi Knowledge Track regarding the preparation for Indian Forest Services, the strategy and what to do and what not to do. In this video we shall be talking about the preparation for the optional, that is the forestry, and we will be talking in depth about how we should be preparing for, why should we choose this optional, and how should we be preparing for this, and what are the tough points and how we should go about them. So regarding why I chose forestry. Forestry is a very natural subject when you talk about Indian Forest Services, and a lot of candidates choose this as their optional along with the other one. Why is it so? Because forestry is core to what we do in Indian Forest Services. So every candidate is naturally curious as to studying the core function of the services. The advantages for that are you can obviously use a lot of your previous knowledge of environment and science and tech directly into this optional. It is technical but a very short optional, so that gives you a lot of advantage as compared to the time required for preparing this optional. Thirdly, it is something that is popular, so there are a lot of resources and there is a lot of guidance available, because a lot of toppers have this as an optional. So you can directly reach out to any of them on Telegram and they can help you out directly as to how you can prepare for the optional. There are also notes, detailed notes prepared existing that are available in the market on Telegram or on internet that you can directly refer to. And finally, it is about interest. Naturally, a candidate appearing for Indian Forest Services is expected to and is usually interested in environment, and therefore I think this is the option that is directly related to it and gives a very in-depth understanding of how forests work, how forests are managed, how wildlife is conserved, and how environmental problems such as pollution, climate change, desertification, soil degradation can be tackled. So this is a very natural and an obvious choice for most candidates. Regarding how I prepared for Forest Services exam, in my attempt there were only 40 days available for the entire preparation. Now, and I was not prepared for either of them, that is for forestry or geology, since they were both new subjects to me. So naturally, out of the 40 days I allotted 35 days for both the optionals, out of which 17 and 18 days, so 17 days for forestry and 18 days for geology. In the first go, I dedicated 10 days in the first round to understanding the subject, reading it in depth, marking slightly, and understanding the nature and the demand of the subject. With each chapter I analyze the PY, that is the previous year questions, and I analyze what is the nature of the question, what is the demand of the question, what are the topics which are focused on more, so that I don't unnecessarily devote more time on lengthy chapters which may not have that much value when it comes to marking. So this was what I did. For 10 days I prepared for understanding the first round of the forestry. I went through the entire book, that is S. Manikandan, which we will be talking about sources later. I went through the entire book, I went through the other sources and understood the whole thing. In the next round, which was after the first round of geology also, I dedicated 4 days for it, wherein I consolidated what I had learned before. I tried to make very short running notes, not very detailed ones, very short running notes, so as to consolidate my own understanding and to ensure that I have writing practice about the same. In this round I also focused on the technical details, that is the scientific names of the trees, about the case studies, the model answers, and the forestry related keywords, that is the silviculture, about the systems that are followed, about how wildlife action plan is implemented, about how forest buildings are constructed, how forest working plans are managed. So these are the keywords that a candidate is generally expected to use in his answers, and it is expected that he is very comfortable with it, so that he can use them in the natural way without it appearing too methodical or fastidious. In the final 3 days, that is immediately preceding the exam, I dedicated only on revising the exams, the questions. So now we will be talking about the sources. The most important source is the book Indian Forestry by Mr. S. Manikandan. It is almost the entire subject, the entire syllabus is covered in the book, and that is basically your Bible for preparation of Indian Forest Services. It is a brilliant book, and I would strongly recommend you to stick to it. There may be slight problems regarding indexing or about updation of the subject, so I would recommend you to buy the latest edition. Apart from that, referring to Mains 365 of environment of any major coaching class would help. And there are certain fringe topics which may be prepared from YouTube videos, from Google, or there is a coaching class known as Hornbill Forestry, which are very amazing content in form of PDFs and videos. So you can refer to that. One thing that I did not do, but you can try out, is to buy the course of Hornbill Forestry. It has brilliant content full of PDFs and videos. However, I did not have the time to do that. So if you can manage it time wise, then you can consider that. Regarding the time management, there are there were 40 days for my window of attempt, but I believe in the next one there will be 60 days available. The nature of time division was such that I allotted nearly 80% to 90% of the time for optionals. Both optional had nearly equal weightage. So I in the 40 days, among the 35 days that I prepared for optionals, I prepared for 17 days for forestry and 18 days for geology. In the 17 days, I divided it in 3 rounds, wherein the 10 days, for the initial 10 days were devoted to understanding the subject, to reading the subject thoroughly, each and every chapter, each and every paragraph, and marking the relevant topics. Along with that, I also kept the list of previous year questions handy, so that I could focus on the important parts. There are some certain topics that are repeatedly asked and that need to be prepared well. For example, the question on mangroves, on bamboo, silviculture of trees are something that are very frequently asked and need to be prepared very well, so that you don't waste time about thinking about the answers and you are well versed with it. In the second round, I focused on rote learning of the subject, wherein the technical details such as the silvicultural practices, such as the scientific name of the trees, such as the list of certain type of trees, say for example medical plants, medicinal plants, for industrial uses plants, the species of mangroves, species of bamboo, etc., which are very frequently asked, was focused on. And finally, in the third round, I managed to merge the strategies for both of them, wherein a bit of understanding and also the rote learning was focused upon in the last 3 days. This was immediately preceding the exam. So this was the extremely high intensity period. Regarding the time management, now because this window is very short and candidates are expected to prepare for 2 optionals generally which are not previously known to the candidate, it is expected that a candidate needs to put a little more effort than usual. A time period of nearly 10 to 12 hours daily is optimum and should be adhered to. Not less, not more. Initial period, there will be a slight inertia after the exhaustion from the civil services mains exam. So there's no problem if you take a little bit of time. But after that, I would strongly recommend you to whole and soul focus on forest services exam. If you are giving the exam, I would strongly recommend you to give it with 100% intensity, 100% dedication, because only in a matter, it is one of the few avenues where only a short period of 40 days will give you extremely good results. And regarding time management, my daily schedule was such that in the early period, I woke up in the morning and I focused on the rote learning part first, so that in the fresh period I could focus on that. After that, in the day and the afternoon, I focused on the learning part, the understanding part. And finally, during the night, I used to sit with couple of my friends to discuss a few answers, the ones which were not available in the ready sources, or wherein we needed to rote learn and ask each other names of scientific names of trees, silvicultural practices of trees, etc. Now, an important point that a candidate may think about is note making. Naturally, a lot of candidates are their method of learning is by making notes and then reading them accordingly. However, regarding this subject, because the subject is relatively vast and the time period available is less, and candidate generally only prepares for them between civil services and forest, note making must not be considered dogmatic. wherein it must not be considered in a dogma sense of way, when it is extremely imperative to prepare for notes. That is not the case. For certain sections, you can focus on the very high intensity, high frequency questions. You can consider very short notes. However, for the rest of it, you can just note it down along in the book itself, and that will save you substantial amount of time. There are certain notes, ready notes available, I believe by Mr. Rishi Kumar and Mr. Rishabh Nahar. I'm not entirely sure about the name, but they're available in the market, wherein they've made mind maps of the same content available. So you can directly refer to them instead of focusing on making your own notes. Notes should only be done in two cases, wherein first for frequently asked questions, and secondly if it is seen as a method that helps you focus a lot more in writing instead of reading. Because this is a technical subject, naturally it is bound to get a little boring, and it is bound to get frustrating at times. So writing may help, but in other scenarios I would not recommend making a lot of notes. It would be handy to just understand and imbibe the subject right from the textbook itself, rather than focusing on writing it. Now every subject has a list of easy and difficult questions, and naturally forestry has them as well. So regarding the difficult topics that I found in forestry, the first chapter of silviculture of trees is quite silviculture and forestry, introduction to forestry, is relatively large, and therefore it is difficult to wrap your head around it. There are a lot of technical terms that are introduced, and therefore in the initial parts of it, it seems very tough. However, my recommendation to candidates would be, the moment you get done with the entire syllabus, you will find that the first chapter is not only very important but also very easy, because it is merely an introduction to what is explained in detail later. Regarding other tough topics, I think there is a chapter known as silviculture of trees, which involves a lot of rote learning regarding nearly 20 to 25 species of trees. In this chapter, I would strongly recommend you to look at previous year questions and only focus on preparing those trees which are asked, because the list of trees is endless, and then you may end up over preparing. In this also, I followed a slightly unconventional approach of, instead of learning which the properties of silvicultural properties tree wise, what I did was I went property wise, wherein I learnt the list of trees which were, say for example, fire resistant or frost hardy, frost tender. Instead of learning whether a tree such as teak, that is Tectona grandis, has so and so properties, what that does is it reduces the number of facts that one needs to remember. And within this also, what I had done is made mnemonics for each property, so that if you were to ask me which trees are fire resistant, I had a mnemonic, and I could instantly recall all the list of trees, and depending on the question which is being asked, I can then very well determine whether the tree is frost hardy or fire tender, or it copices well, or the root suckering is good or bad. So that is being said over silviculture of trees. There is another chapter that is known as forest mensuration, that is slightly tough. Forest survey is tough. For candidates who don't have a background in civil engineering, there is a chapter known as forest buildings, which is slightly tough. However, it must be realized that most of the questions in forestry are asked from general, easy to prepare such chapters. So one must not get intimidated by such chapters, and rather one must focus on maximizing their efforts on the easy chapters, while ensuring that the frequently asked questions from the tough chapters are not let go. If there is certain questions that you can see in previous year questions which are tough to ask, you should remember two things. One, if it is asked in the compulsory section, it will be tough for everybody, because naturally no one would have the time or the expertise to answer them. Secondly, if it is asked among the optional questions, you can very well leave them and choose the easier ones. There is also a lot of rote learning involved. So for a candidate who is not very comfortable with it, that may seem daunting. But I would strongly suggest not just rote learning for the sake of it, but understanding in what kind of thing that you are looking for. For example, if you are looking for silviculture of trees, and it would be very easy to divide the trees into evergreen and deciduous, the trees found in North India and South India, the trees with coniferous tendencies, the trees with semi-evergreen tendencies, and then you will be able to predict the trend of properties by yourself, rather than merely rote learning each and every property, each and every data of rainfall, etc. It is expected that the candidate uses his own discretion in learning, and he also uses his common sense, wherein you don't necessarily need to know the exact figures for rainfall or for the exact usage. You can make a fair estimate. Say for example, if a tree is grown in Western Ghats, say for example, you must be aware the sandalwood is quite commonly found. Mango is commonly found in Western Ghats. So regarding questions such as the properties of trees, say for example mango or sandalwood, that is very commonly asked, you can very easily predict the kind of properties that it will have based on common knowledge, such as mango is an evergreen tree. Mango is generally found in the hot and humid parts of the country. It is found around Western Ghats. So depending on your previous geography knowledge, you will be able to predict which kind of properties that will have. And naturally the opposite as well. If I tell you the region, say for example North India or the Central Indian region, you will be able to guess which kind of trees will be available. Also, depending on understanding the nature of the question, for example in urban forestry, you will be, by just understanding what kind of trees need to be, what kind of properties that trees need to have in urban forestry setups, you will be able to by yourself tell which trees can be used. For example, the focus would be on multi-purpose trees, that is trees which have fruit bearing, which have a wide canopy, which have deeper roots, which are quick growing. Naturally, by knowing the properties of trees, you can very well predict which kind of trees you can be planting. So basically the point being, rote learning may seem daunting, but the moment you get a grasp of the subject, you understand it well, you can very easily tackle those questions. And it will be very helpful if you learn the scientific names beforehand and revise them daily, because a lot of times very commonly known trees, say for example Ashoka, such as mango, such as sandalwood, such as teak, sal, are known referred to by their scientific names, and it seems very scientific and technical, and we don't understand what is being talked about. Growing up in and around trees, we have a fair idea of how trees are. For example, we are all aware of the medical properties of neem. So therefore, if medicinal plants are asked, Azadirachta indica, which is the scientific name for neem, can be quoted. Or for example, if you are learning of properties of Azadirachta indica, you can very well understand that it is neem, and then it will not be very difficult to predict its properties. Now of course one must focus about the value additions in forestry, also how you can get more marks with the same knowledge. It should be focused on that scientific names, technical terms such as silvicultural practices, agroforestry, social forestry, ethnobotany, etc. are mentioned, and diagrams should be practiced. As much as diagrams that you can draw in the exam, it is better. And of course time management is of extreme importance, because there are a lot of questions, and it would help if you have conclusion and introductions of the questions prepared. So I think we've discussed in depth about the nature and the kind of preparation that is needed for forestry. You can reach out to me for any doubts, and yes, so I think this is a good introduction for anybody who wants to begin preparation in this subject. You can alternately follow the other toppers of forestry who have detailed Telegram channels and videos and blogs on the same. So here we come to the end of the video on optional for forestry, and I hope that you found useful insights and you found it useful. You should there is also another video that I prepared on geology, and of course on general preparation as well. You can watch that if it helps you. So this is Delhi Knowledge Track, and Yash Kale appearing for it, and happy studying, and I hope to see you in the services very soon. Thank you.